It's 8:38, 22 minutes now before the hour of 9 o'clock with Sean and Frank, Maryland's wake-up call. Time for our AES Newsmaker Hotline interview, which happens to be in studio today. Brought to you by AES Builder and Home Improvements. When they're done, you'll be happy. If you're not happy, they're not done. The Carroll County Board of Education is the prize here today. We've got three of the candidates who are running to be elected to the Board of Education. They are George Harmoning, Bud Nason, and Jim Roenick. And we want to thank you, gentlemen, for joining us here this morning. We're going to talk with George first, who happens to be on the phone with us. Good morning, George. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Sean. How are you?
We're doing just fine. I guess everybody has seen the video that went viral yesterday of the Common Core mangled math, the 9 plus 6. Most of it know immediately it's 15, but it took about 56 seconds for the teacher to explain it to the reporter who was doing the piece on it. And this whole Common Core thing has really just got a lot of people upset. And there's a growing backlash now nationwide and, of course, in Carroll County. So what do you guys propose to do with the Common Core curriculum?
Well, here's the thing, Sean. In Carroll County, there's a real battle right now over our children and their education. And the three of us plan on ridding Carroll County of this ridiculous mockery of an education. And what we're going to do, as an elected official, we have responsibility to protect the Constitution. Common Core is unconstitutional. And the parents' rights to guide your child's education, upheld by the Supreme Court's decision, trump any state law about standardized testing. And parental rights are broadly protected by the Supreme Court's decision, Meyer and Pierce. In fact, parents possess the fundamental right to direct the upbringing and education of their children, and we plan on enforcing this Constitution and bringing our county back to common sense, not Common Core, and bringing it back to educating our children and not indoctrinating our children.
Well, it's a very good point. Louisiana Governor Bobby Jindal is recently suing the administration for basically, the feds are not supposed to be part of any of the state education curriculum, and he's claiming this is all a smokescreen, so it's getting a lot of national attention. But I've always said that it's going to be the local school boards is where these battles are going to play out. Bud Nason now joining us in studio. And Bud, is that what prompted you to run for the local school board?
Absolutely. Interestingly enough, Lee County, Florida, just said they're opting out of Common Core by not participating in the testing program. That's an option that every county, every school board across the country has. They've exercised that option, and that's one of the things that we're taking a look at as well.
Jim Roenick here with us as well in studio. Jim, what about the criticism? You guys are against higher standards. This is a lot of scare tactics. This is really just about wanting our kids to perform better.
Sean, this really isn't about the level of standards, which, by the way, it's not higher. These are not higher standards. There have been experts in the field, such as Dr. Sandra Stotsky and James Milgram, mathematician from Stanford, that said that these standards have never been benchmarked. They're not higher standards. In fact, James Milgram says by 8th grade, our students will be 2 years behind the internationally benchmarked countries. So it's not a question of standards, and we intend to implement probably the best state standards that have existed in the country in the last decade.
George, Bud, and Jim, this is Frank Luper. Thank you for joining us here this morning. Mm-hmm. You do have the backing of the majority of parents and people in general living in Carroll County as far as wanting to push back Common Core, correct?
We don't know. It's been a quiet summer.
Well, I'm sorry?
I say it's been a very quiet summer. But school's back in session now, and people are finding out that not only is school back, so is Common Core, and they don't like what they see.
That's what I mean. In other words, the majority of people, from what I've been able to read, are against this, even before it was implemented.
Yes, we don't have any definite polls that I know of, Frank, but every of the carnivals and events and whatnot that we've worked, I have yet to have a parent come up to me and say, "You're not going to touch Common Core. We love it."
Well, I'm thankful that you're doing this kind of thing. I think more counties in this state ought to do it. My question, though, is have you either received any threat direct threat, implied threat, or anything of that nature from the state that if you pursue pushing back on Common Core to do away with it in Carroll County, that the state would cut off funds to Carroll County schools?
We have not received any threat like that as of yet. Like I said, there's a constitutional basis for doing this, and that's what we are going to proceed with, is the constitutional effort.
As far as state funding is concerned, there is this Thornton formula, and the state, it slices both ways. The state must fund according to the Thornton formula. So if we decide that Common Core is not in the county's best interest after having tested under the Race to the Top grant over the last several years, they really don't have any way of withholding the Thornton formula funding, nor do the county commissioners have any way of withholding local funding.
Mm-hmm. Frankie, going back to the question you asked about parents and being in favor of, there was an article in the Carroll County Times just a couple weeks ago about a mother and her A-plus student who had been struggling the last several years in school. He loved school. Math was his favorite subject, but it was no longer. And it was you're shaken by the last sentence in that article where she said, "I just had to save him." We haven't gotten that type of reaction, but it's, I've spoken to probably 20, 25 people that have taken their children out of school and out of public school and homeschooling them just because they see no educational value, no business value of the math, the English. They can't read, the difficulties associated that they're finding under Common Core.
We're talking with George Harmoning, Bud Nason, and Jim Roanoke. They are candidates. They're seeking election to the Carroll County Board of Education. George, I've even heard that there are a lot of unions that are not happy with Common Core. So there seems to be some common ground here between, some of the union representatives and union officials and that represent teachers and those parents and those of us who believe it's a constitutional issue. So why is it so hard to eliminate Common Core with this kind of a common agreement?
Well, I think what you have to do is you have to follow the money, Sean. You have to realize that most of the parents and most of the public never heard of Common Core until 2013. Common Core started in about 2008. What they don't know is Common Core was developed by primarily two private trade organizations, and those private trade organizations were the National Governors Association for Best Practices and the Council of Chief State School Officers. Now, these two private organizations claim to be nonprofit, so they're generating a huge amount of subsidies from the government, which is the taxpayers' money, for them to develop the Common Core standards. They're also receiving millions of dollars from the Bill Gates Foundation. This is really not state-driven, it's Bill Gates-driven. Bill Gates has everything to gain from Common Core. He is going to be gaining millions of dollars from Common
So does
Core.
the guy that runs the College Board as well, as I understand it.
David Coleman.
Yeah, he has got the SAT, ACT, or whatever the case may be, and he stands to rake in a lot of dough.
Right.
Yes, and what's happened is Bill Gates has, like I said, has invested over $5 billion in advancing Common Core, and how he's doing that is he's giving money to unions. He's giving, for an example, the American Federation of Teachers has been paid over $5 million by Bill Gates. The National Education Association was paid almost $4 million by Bill Gates. So he's really stashing cash in these different organizations so that they will advance Common Core for his main gain.
Well, what is the main objective of Common Core, to begin with, other than for the government to get more involved in education?
Well, it's also a way. Common Core has a left shift to it. It's a way to indoctrinate our children. And if you take example, the AP history courses that they're going to implement in Common Core, there's one mention of George Washington, there's no mention of our founding fathers. So they're essentially changing history for the government's benefit.
So this is basically a so-called quote and unquote progressive idea.
Very progressive.
Yeah, and we've done reports on it.
With that label alone, we should, be against it.
Well, but again, unfortunately, you got to look. Parents are busy. They're trying to run their households, both working in some cases. And I've always suggested, you've got to review your children's homework. You've got to know what they're doing in schools. You got to read through their textbooks. But are you hearing from a lot of parents that are starting to discover that wait a minute, there's something really tragically wrong with this curriculum?
Yes, they are, and they're finding. And one of the things that's critically important is that parents do get involved. They need to step up for their kids. The kids are what's at stake here. They do have their own opt-out opportunity. They can request, and there's information on our website that they can go to. The website is fedupwithcommoncore.com. They can go there and see the process that they can utilize to put together their opt-out letter whereby their child is not subjected to the testing process.
Jim, are you hearing from any teachers or educators?
Hearing from some directly, many indirectly that are acquaintances of teachers, and the point that we're hearing is teachers do not like it, but they have been threatened by the principals, who have in turn been threatened by the State Board of Education that you will toe the line with Common Core aligned subjects.
Well, all right, I'll go back to that threat that I mentioned earlier. So you just mentioned a threat. What kind of a threat are they talking about?
Their jobs. If you don't toe the line, you'll be replaced. And again, if you're looking to find employment in the state of Maryland, the entire state is aligned. Therefore, you won't be working in the state of Maryland.
George, let me ask you this. Where's the Carroll County Superintendent of Education come into play here?
Well, the superintendent, Steve Guthrie, he's all for Common Core. So we don't get much help there.
Gee, where is Chuck Ecker when we need him?
Yeah. He's by the totem pole again. But, all right, well, again, gentlemen, thanks for coming in here this morning. George Harmoning, Bud Nason, Jim Roenick, and this fedupwithcommoncore.com
That's right.
is the website where you can get a lot more information. And again, the election is less than 60 days.
Yes.
So we're talking less than 2 months now.
That's right.
So all three running for Board of Education in Carroll County. Gentlemen, thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
George, thanks for joining us by phone.
Sean, Frank, thank you.
Thank you, Frank.
Thank you.
All right, it's 8:51, and that is